everybody, welcome back to Stumpy Grump Scale Speed Shop. This is Craig. A lot of you guys know me as CM Gordon from the Facebook groups, and this video is going to be about Createx 4050 UVLS Gloss Clear. And I've gotten a lot of questions about and comments about how do I get such a nice shiny paint job out of that Createx. Mostly dumb luck, but I have, through trial and error and experimenting, come up with a pretty good method that works for me. It may not work for you, I can't guarantee that, but this is just what I do, and hopefully this helps some of you out there, because this Createx is pretty good stuff. It is a little tricky to use, but once you get a handle on it, it's really good stuff. So let me put this back in the box and we'll get started. Okay, so we'll be starting with the AMT 1955 Chevy hood. It's already been primered in Stynylrez white primer. Very smooth finish on it, 2 coats. I will hopefully be doing a little thing on Stynylrez primers next month, if all goes well. Okay, so we're back. We got the hood painted and it's dried. Once again, apple barrel Admiral Blue. 6 or 7 coats. I over thinned it, so it needed a few extra coats. Now we're going to mix up the Createx UVLS 4050 Gloss Clear. Per their website, they say to add 10% of the 4011 reducer. I think I usually add about 25%, so we'll see how that looks. We have our cup, and we have our coffee stirrer cut in half. Don't need to use the whole thing. Mix it up a little bit. We'll go by drops here and see where we're at. 1, 2, whoops. Yeah, we're not going to be able to do that. Okay, we'll use the measurements on the cup here. I'm going to take it to the 5 cc mark. Which is right there. Just over. I call it about 6 cc's. And some quick math. The next one up is 7.5. So that's where we'll take it to. 7.5. And we'll mix it up. And we'll see what we look like here. Okay, we'll try that. Okay, so I basically filled it with up to about 6 with 6 cc's with the clear, and then to about 7.5 with the 4011 reducer. It's all mixed up. Now we let it set for 15 minutes. Again, Createx website recommendation for everything to mix together and to gel together. So we'll let that sit for 15 minutes and then we'll get it in the airbrush and we'll start spraying. Okay, now we're ready to spray. The hood, again, a glove and a mask, even though it's water-based. Between 20 and 25 pounds of pressure. I'm at probably 22 right here. Couple of sprays, test sprays, and we want to hit some medium coats on this. Okay, it is a little bit thicker, so I'm going to have to go a little slower with the first coat. We'll let that set dry for 5 to 15 minutes depending. Okay, so the first coat's dry. Now onto the second coat. It was spraying a little bit thicker than I liked it, so I added 6 more drops of the 4011 to my mixture. And I also found out that my compressor was set down to 15 pounds, so I knocked it up to 22. So you can see a much better flow of the clear coming out this time. Okay, second coat. At about 15 minutes. Okay, so coat number 2 is dry and we're ready to go to coat number 3. Blow off any little dust that might be in there. Okay, so for coat number 3. Fleck of dust in there, but it should sand out. So there's coat number 3. So now we're ready for coat number 4. Number 4 is down. Okay, coat 4 is dry. We're ready for coat number 5. Okay. Okay, so that's that. 5th coat down. That should be about it. We'll let it set for probably 3 days now. The website suggests at least 48 hours. I go at least 72, just to be sure. So we'll set that aside and let it dry, let it cure, and I'll come back with the rest. Okay, so it's Wednesday morning and we're ready for the wet sanding portion of the program. I use a 4-ounce cup. I put it just halfway, a little bit more than halfway with water, and I put 1 drop of regular blue Dawn dish soap in it. That helps give it a little bit of slip to it. It's not as, you know, cuts down on the friction a little bit. Okay. I use micro mesh polishing pads. They're 2-inch pads. You get 9 of them. There's 9 different grits going from 1,500 all the way up to 12,000. I rarely use the lower grits. I'll be starting this one with 4,000, then going to 6,000, 8,000, and 12,000. As you see, they come in rounded squares like this. What I found that works best for me, and this is just for me, is I cut them into quarters. And then I peel off the actual surface from the sponge pad. This gives me more control, at least a better feel and better control. That's just me. A lot of you guys might be different, but that's just what I do. So I have my 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, and 12,000, and I'm ready to go. I use a paper towel square to wipe off any extra moisture and water off of the hood to clean it off. So let's get started here. I am going to start with the 4,000. Normally I might only start with 6,000 because the surface is pretty smooth, but there's some dust in here, so I will start with the 4,000. Bear with me here. Hopefully you can see everything. I have my glasses off so I can see better, but I can't see from a distance with them. So hopefully my ugly mug doesn't get in the way too much. My head here. Just get just a little wet. You don't need to drench it. You don't want to drench it. And you just, with the 4,000, you want to go pretty light. Just your typical wet sanding. Just use your whatever technique you use if you're used to wet sanding. Most of you probably are. I just use a back and forth motion. Let's say my technique probably isn't the best, but it kind of doesn't have to be. Just don't put too much pressure on it. You don't want to burn through. You will burn through pretty quickly with this stuff. It's not like your lacquers. You will burn through pretty quickly. Okay, you want to stop. You don't want to leave the surface too wet too long. So you just wipe it away. What you should see is you should see some dulling on the surface, obviously, because you're sanding it. Just get any texture out of there that you can. This is coming along pretty nicely, actually. Just a little bit here and there. And for me, because I know I usually inevitably burn through in a number of places, especially on the edges, whatever paint I use, I just make sure I have a little bit extra left and put it in a bottle so I can use it as a touch-up. And we'll go along the front here too, why not? It's got a raised edge here where you put the emblem on it, so that's going to get burned through real fast, especially with the 4,000. We'll do a quick pass the opposite way here, blend in a little bit. back in the water. Wipe it away. You don't want to let water sit on this very long, even though it's cured pretty decently. It is water-based and water will get to it. Okay, looking good except for just the top here. Your first grit, you really want to be the one to get all the imperfections out of. The rest of it is just smoothing it out. Sequentially from there on. Okay. All right, I'm happy with that. So I'll take my pad out and let it sit to dry. You know, honestly, I reuse these things. I probably get 3 or 4 wet sanding jobs out of just one square, and I end up with what, 8 squares. So do the math on that. These things cost about 15 bucks. So not a bad investment at all. I'm only going to do one side of the hood. I'm going to show you the difference. Get that wet again. And now we're on the 6,000 grit. Again, very lightly. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on it, especially with these grits. You really don't need to. Again, you don't want to leave it wet for very long. Just wipe it back dry. Now I'll go back across the other way. Some of these curved and surfaces with a lot of edges on it, they get pretty tricky. You don't want to get right up to it. Just use your polish for that. Okay, back in there. Wipe off the surface real quick. Biggest key is when you lay the clear coat down is to have that smooth finish to begin with. It really helps a lot. Okay, 6,000's looking really good. Set that down and I'll get to the 8,000 real quick. Okay, I'm all satisfied with, well, the 6,000 look, so now I'll go to the 8,000. Start the same way. Very lightly. Be careful against that center ledge there. You'll get your own techniques down too as to what feels comfortable and better for you as far as the wet sanding. Not saying mine's any good or anything like that, but it's just what I feel comfortable with and how I like to do it. I may be the goofy oddball with how I do it, but it seems to work for me. Okay. Wipe that off real fast. You can see on the edge of the hood here, I've got a lot of primer exposed, so I did burn through both the clear and the paint right there. That's why I keep the touch up. The edges like this, I always expect to have to touch up. I don't consider it a big deal, but if you do, you're gonna definitely want to be a little bit more careful around there. Okay, and now we'll go side to side a little bit here. So I say the one difference with the lacquers, you really don't have to worry about burning through too much, but at least I don't. But with the Createx, it's a little bit easier to burn through. Just bear that in mind. Wipe that off. You notice, once again, not to harp on it, but don't keep the surface too wet for too long. Do smaller sections at a time. You don't really want to do more than a half a hood basically at once. Okay, so I'll take the 8,000 out and dry it off and set it out to dry. And finally we have our 12,000. Get that wet. A little bit on the surface. I say you don't want to drown it for sure. Kind of line up the edge with the edge there so you're not going over it. I'm not checking my video, so hopefully this is working out pretty good and you can all see it. If not, I'll just have to redo it and give a better viewpoint here. I guess the easiest way to not burn through the edges is to don't get too close to the edges, huh? Wipe that away. Okay. That ought to do it. Wipe everything off. So there you have your two surfaces. Just the clear, you can see a lot of dust in there. And now your wet sanded side. A little duller still, but very, very smooth. Up next, the Novus number 2 polish after I clean up the wet sanding excess. Okay, now we're on to the polishing stage, and I use Novus number 2 fine scratch remover. I also use these squares that I got off of Amazon. They are Bonnie Sullivan Woolies. Get a whole bunch of them in here. I've already used a bunch, and there's still a lot more. I'll try to link all these in the description. But also what I do is I take these, and I even cut them down further. I cut it in half, and I use half to wipe off the polish. And I cut the other half again into basically into a quarter to apply the polish. I do the same thing with the wax. So I'll use this to apply, and you can reuse them if you know, whatever, so that you're not using up a whole square every time. And then I'll use this to wipe it off. So we shake up the polish really good. And squeeze a dab onto the square. Really need a ton here. And you just apply it. Just rub it on. You can apply some pressure here. Get rid of the scratches. Now the instructions on the Nova says to do it at a right angle to how the scratches are, so we'll try that first and see what happens. You say, you get a little guidebook with the Novus polish. Tell you how to use them. Fine scratch, the polish. Clean and shine, the fine scratch, and the heavy scratch remover. Okay, so we'll wipe that off now. You can really start to see the difference in the shine. And what I will do now is apply a quick second coat. Of the polish. It says in a circular motion. If there's any other scratches left, that should level them all out. And we'll wipe it off. Okay. Got that part done. Up next will be the wax. Okay, so now for the wax part. For this I use Meguiar's cleaner wax. No particular reason, I just, what they had on the shelf that looked like it would work the best for me. Really use whatever wax you want. Again, I use a clean square that I took. And just a little bit. Now there's probably way too much on there. Wipe a little bit off. And wax on. Gonna get a little bit all over the place here, but theoretically the other side of the hood would have been wet sanded and polished as well. I'm just don't see the need. I'm going to use it as a comparison here. So you just rub in your wax, let it dry for about a half an hour or so, and then we'll come back and wipe it off, and we'll see what we have. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes and it looks like the wax is dry. So I flip the hood upside down, and now we're gonna remove it. So we're in the wax off part of the program. Go to a clean portion. Trying to get the rest off here. There you are. Nice and smooth surface, nice and shiny. A little bit of roughness there, a little bit of texture in that part. So hopefully that shows enough. And that is how I do the Createx UVLS 4050 Gloss Clear. So hopefully this is of help to some of you out there. It shows you my process of how I get a nice surface out of the Createx UVLS 4050 Gloss Clear. A lot of times your prep work is going to be the key. You lay down a nice paint job, you know, it starts with prepping the body right, cleaning off any kind of mold release agent, and then getting the primer on nice and smooth, and getting the paint on nice and smooth, and getting your clear on. So all these steps are important factors in this. It's not just the final polishing step. That's just the icing on the cake. So there it is. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully this helps some people out there. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time on Stumpy Grump Scale Speed Shop.